been a while. It's time to go on a little journey. Missed having you with me on my sojourns. This is a particularly tedious journey. Where I'm going is great, but getting there is another matter entirely. So I want to tell you a story, or rather offer you a piece of advice. And where advice is concerned, you can literally ignore every other piece of advice I've given you. It's all bollocks, except for this piece of advice. And the only way you will find out that it's the most important piece of advice is by ignoring it. As creators, we create a thing called, which way do you reckon? IP. And the minute you have P, people want to take the piss, really. It's inevitable. In fact, I would almost guarantee that at some point in your career, you will feel that your P, your property, your intellectual property, has either been stolen or exploited without you being compensated. After what reverb do you use for strings, the most common question I get asked when I go around meeting composers is, what to do if someone takes your P? How do you claim your rights? How do you get what's due to you? You need to sort this shit out before your IP is exploited. That's if you know it's going to be exploited. If someone is suggesting that they pay you X amount because they want you to compose 6 minutes of music for an action blockbuster that's 3 hours long, the chances are you may have to write more than 6 minutes of music. This stuff is far easier to negotiate at the beginning rather than at the end. And if you don't feel you're in a position to negotiate, the chances are they're only using you because you're cheap or free. And from my experience, I can tell you that when they do come into the money on future projects, the last person they're going to use is you. Protect yourself. Oh, man. This is why I've been trying to think about a word of discussing this. Why are my eyes so dry? First, I just have to show you this. This is my least favourite view when you wake up in a hotel. EasyJet planes. It's not only that you wake up and you're not even there yet, but you know you've got to get on an EasyJet flight to get there. So what I'm trying to get to with this vlog episode is you must never, ever, ever take things legal. You must first either try and negotiate the deal that's right for you and for your IP. If you haven't done and somehow you've been ripped off, you must appeal to the person who's ripped you off to try and get a better deal of things. If you've been totally ripped off out of the blue, again, you must appeal to their better nature. And if you get nothing out of it, you must learn something from it. But to take things further, to take things legal, is really not a good idea. So about 6 months ago, I hooked up with a pal who I hadn't seen for about 2 years. And when he arrived, I was really shocked because he looked possibly between 10, even I would say 20 years older than he was the last time I saw him. And I said to him, what happened? And he said to me, I've got a story to tell you. Turns out his wife had sang on a hit record. Not a hit in the way that most people understand it, in the sense of it had got into the charts. A hit in the sense that it had been synchronized over 900 times. Chanel adverts, you name it. Global kind of recognized, if I were to hum it to you, you'd recognize it kind of hit. And his wife had definitely co-written this hit. She hadn't been given any of her rights. She had appealed to the better nature of the 2 other people she'd written it with, people she referred to as friends. So let's say that my friend is called Brian and his wife is Anne. So Anne engages basically the best legal firm in London, and they engage the best barrister in London in order to sort this shit out.
Oh, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about music nerdery, like modular synths and stuff like that.
Not like YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, do you have like many subscribers? Well done.
Cheers.
I'll watch it.
Actually, well, you're going to be on it. So, where was I? They do it on a deferred payment, which basically means they only charge 10% of their fees whilst the case is ongoing, but when they win, they get 200% of their fees. This is the only way they could afford to do it. And 10% of their fees amounts to £5,000. It's about $7,000 a month. But that's fine, because, you know, this is just like a knuckle wrap. That'll be it, sorted. And the good news is they won. Kind of. They're basically fighting for 4 chunks of change. There's the mechanical rights from Dickwad 1, there's the publishing rights from Dickwad 1, and the same from Dickwad 2. And they managed to get the publishing rights from Dickwad 2. The other Dickwad just simply ignored the letters from the lawyers. So they won £15,000, about 20 grand in US dollars. Problem was, it took 2 years to win that, and if you're doing the maths, remember that the lawyers are charging their 10% fee of £5,000 a month to Brian. It's cost Brian £120,000 for Anne to win that 15 grand. Who gets the 15 grand? Well, this is when it turns really nasty. I don't know about you, but if someone had charged me 120 grand to extract 15 grand that I was owed, I would say that wasn't a job well done. But in legal terms, it triggered what's known as a success fee, which is, as I've told you already, 200% of what they've already charged. This was the point that Brian and Anne were served an invoice for £2.3 million. Whilst lawyers aren't great at solving things quickly, what they're great at solving is getting paid. It wasn't the amounts that had aged Brian, it was the sheer torture the legal firm, Anne and Brian's own legal firm, put them through in order to, I would say, extort this money. The one thing that really sticks with me is, you know, of the pain and anguish they went through was the 8 o'clock Friday calls. Why are they calling? You want to pick that up. You're compelled to. You pick it up and they drop a bombshell on you. Something like, you know, we've thought about, you know, the invoice and we think that we'd probably be happy if we settled with you selling your house. There's no one you can call. There's no one you can speak to. There's no kind of comeback to that with them until Monday. And it was that kind of war of attrition that seems to have run my friend Brian into the ground. So much so that he admitted to me that at points he considered suicide. The ferocious fire that these people are living in that needs to be extinguished by alcohol or indeed suicide. I've got my chops, man. I've got my chops.
Man. What's up, man? What's your YouTube channel? What do you do in it?
Really boring, nerdy shit.
What is it again? Pretty much about to go, right?
Take care.
You too, man.
Take care.
Cheers, man. I think Belfast is basically the best city on the planet. I mean, look at this. Yeah! I mean, take 2, you know, high-profile cases. If you look at you know, My Sweet Lord, George Harrison, on a human level, it's so clear to me that he didn't knowingly copy He's So Fine. But if you take the court case with Jimmy Page, who so blatantly lifted that riff off a song that a band played supporting Led Zeppelin, George Harrison gets taken to the cleaners, Jimmy Page scot-free. It's like rolling a dice. And the music lawyers know this too. They've done it enough times. So they design their businesses so that in no circumstances can they ever fail. I've always found it curious, that people who you're paying to come to a resolution are charging by the hour. It de-incentivizes them coming to a resolution quickly. Lawyers are great at helping you come to a resolution where an agreement has already been met. They're great at protecting you against lawsuits coming in, and naturally great at advising you about remaining within the law. And I think where you have been done up like a kipper, it's about being able to self-reflect and to mitigate against that in the future. There are two different human states. There is the state of creating surplus, and there is the state of requiring that surplus. When we're born and when we're dying, we require that surplus. That you have created a surplus is good enough. That you've created something that is good enough for someone to value and want to steal is your success. Because there are people who never satisfy the basic human prerogative of creating a surplus, and these people are called thieves. If you seek justice from thieves, you're seeking justice from the wrong source. Someone who is incapable of creating surplus, hasn't figured out a way of creating surplus, is ill-equipped to provide you with an apology, recompense, recognition, gratitude, or indeed the money that you're owed. People who can't create surplus live in a debtor's mindset. At some point, you will have to grieve your loss, whether that be friendship or financial. Better to get that out of the way earlier rather than later. And what of Anne and Brian? Well, turns out Anne had a kind of inner Erin Brockovich that she brought out, and she got them both totally off the hook. It took them, as I say, 2 years to do that, but they didn't lose their house, they didn't go bankrupt, all of that kind of stuff, and that's a good kind of end to that story. As always with this vlog, this is really just the kind of kicking off point for a conversation. I'm sure I felt with previous vlogs, me talking about ghostwriting, this, that and the other, that we probably needed to take it into another episode, and I think that this is probably enough for today, but this is a massive subject that I've had to turn to Paul, my business partner at Spitfire, at points and gone, listen mate, it's just not worth it. Maybe once I've read some of the comments down below, which I really do invite you to discuss your feelings about what I've said and maybe any experiences you've had. Be careful what you say. Thanks as always for joining me on what was quite a tedious journey. I haven't done a run and gun for a while, and I felt that it was just kind of a little bit rusty in that respect, so apologies for that. But if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you want to be notified the next time I put up a video, ding that bell, and one of those, I think it's actually the left hand, isn't it? One of those, always welcome if you've appreciated what I've done. Let's reconvene at a later stage. See you next time.